It's Dean the General from Three of a Kind with another tier list, Black Sabbath discography up to 1983, plus the final new album by the original quartet, along with a live album and the first two studio releases by their original lead singer. The historic debut album came out at the beginning of 1970 and is probably the very first heavy metal album. They followed up at the end of the year with Paranoid, easily their best-selling album, and considered a classic. In 1971, they faced the daunting prospect of following that up. Master of Reality was a relative disappointment, although it also sold pretty well. Volume 4 was released the following year and is definitely an improvement. Among the greatest albums they ever made. The end of 1973 saw the release of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, certainly among their greatest achievements. However, it was surpassed 2 years later by the amazing Sabotage. Early the following year, Black Sabbath released their first compilation album, We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll, a double album that was extremely popular. Later that year, another disappointing follow-up to a great studio album, Technical Ecstasy, came out. 2 years later, the band released the final studio album with the original foursome. Never Say Die was a relative improvement, but most fans hate it. Live at Last came out early in 1980. Originally a bootleg, it was given an official release during the 1990s. Also released that year, the very first album with Ronnie James Dio as their new singer. Heaven and Hell met with a mixed reaction. The iconic Ozzy Osbourne released his first album, Blizzard of Oz, in 1980. It features many of his best-known songs. The following year, Black Sabbath released the inferior Mob Rules. 3 days later, Ozzy Osbourne released his second album, Diary of a Madman. Many critics consider this his finest work. Unfortunately, it was the last album before the death of the phenomenal guitarist Randy Rhoads, who died in a freak plane accident in 1982. Meanwhile, Black Sabbath released a live album that we're not going to include here called Live Evil. That lineup dissolved and Ian Gillan, formerly of Deep Purple, joined as singer. They released Born Again in 1983, which has been unfairly criticized. Our final album for today is Reunion, released in 1998. It features two new studio tracks by the classic lineup, Ozzy, Bill, Tony, and Geezer. The band pretty much broke up in the 2010s. Check out Three of a Kind for other tier lists and videos on pop rock music. Comment, subscribe, like. Thanks again for watching.